Coming to you from the podcast studio of WTAP Plus, you're watching Learning Legal with your host, Megan Marshall.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Learning Legal podcast. And today we are diving into kind of a twofold topic of when is it time to get a lawyer and why does the type of lawyer you get matter. And today I am joined by Jim Leach to kind of talk about this. So thank you for coming back and joining me again.
Thank you for inviting me, Megan. I hope I can be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. So, we'll just dive straight in. So when is a good time? It's usually never a good time when you need to get a lawyer, but when do you know you need to get a lawyer?
So anytime you're faced with a circumstance that does involve, and it can be it can be criminal, it can be civil, it can be a dispute with your neighbor, it can be a car wreck, it can be criminal prosecution, you can be a victim of a crime. But anytime that you're concerned about what your rights are in a particular situation, understand that you have resources today in the form of AI and Google that can at least give you an introduction to what your situation is. But one of the blessings, I believe, and one of the duties of lawyers is to help people on a consultation basis. And so call immediately. So, for example, in my office, I take calls every day that I know that this person is not going to end up needing my services. They just need my advice.
Yeah.
Right? So I say you don't always need a lawyer, but you always need advice.
Right.
So sooner than later, because the later that you wait, many times people will think they can handle something on their own. And yet if they would pick up the phone, get a reputable attorney on the line for a consultation that often doesn't cost them anything in that initial call, certainly doesn't with my office, then they get a handle on what's going on and to determine, hey, is this something I really need to get involved in? Because, of course, there's expense in some circumstances. So right away, it is my short answer to your question. Always try to reach out, look for lawyers that offer free consultations, get a sense of what your rights are before you make mistakes that you can't take back.
Yeah, there's always wisdom in a lot of counsel on a situation. So absolutely. Okay, so then when it comes to choosing a lawyer, let's say, okay, we've gotten the consultation, we probably do need to take steps going forward. What exactly does that look like? How do people do that?
So, lawyers are not ubiquitous. In other words, different lawyer, you would not go to a cardiologist to get a knee surgery, right? And so choosing the lawyer has a lot to do with what your circumstance is. Word of mouth, especially in a community like Parkersburg, is huge. Most of the clients that come to me because they've talked to somebody who is aware of the services that we offer, the quality of our representation, and they come to us. And that's the same is true. It has to be a lawyer. All I do is practice in litigation, personal injury work. The law is too complex and too broad. I can't do personal injury, wills, estates, contracts, and on and on. A criminal defense, family law. Right. Not if you're going to be excellent in the field that you're in. That's what we strive to achieve. And if you're looking for a lawyer, that's the lawyer you're looking for, somebody who practices in that area with demonstrated history of success that you can rely on to get the job done for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you emphasized excellence because that's such a big thing, like in anything you do, whether that's legal or if it's anything else, excellence is so important. So what's the biggest mistake that either you've heard of or you've seen that people make when they need legal help?
Choosing the wrong lawyer. I mean, quite frankly, for example, in what I do, I deal with claims adjusters every day. Claims adjusters keep track of lawyers. If the claims rep knows you have not been in a jury trial in 15 or 20 years, if ever, which there are plaintiffs' lawyers that do not go to trial, then they just wait for you to cave in, right? So a question might be, when's the last time you were in a jury trial? When's the last time? Not every case requires a trial, but every case requires a trial lawyer in the field that I'm in. Because if you won't take your client the distance when it's necessary, adjusters know that, and your client is not going to get full value and justification in their case.
Wow. Okay. And then can you talk a little bit, because I have no idea what it means, the adjusters part, what is that?
So when you have a claim, right, many people think lawyers go to trial or in court.
Yeah.
People think, for example, if you're in a car wreck, everything just gets taken care of. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? And so there are so many variables as the test for us is how do we put our client in the best position? That could be an immediate early settlement. That could be waiting a period of time. That could be waiting years because they're continuing to treat. There's sufficient coverage. Just so many things we, of course, can't get into right now.
Right.
So interfacing with the insurance industry, also the insurance defense industry, understanding how they work, how they evaluate claims, what evidence you need to be able to produce to get your client full value for the injuries or whatever they've experienced. There's no substitute just for decades of experience and going the distance. I can't stress how important that is. It was the last 2 jury trials I've had, we settled day 4, day 5 in trial because they didn't believe that we were going to go to trial. Right, and this is just in the last year, so it matters quite a bit.
Okay, wow, okay, and then you kind of talked on this a little bit, but I guess there's a perception that all lawyers are the same, or any lawyer can handle any case. You've kind of showed me or talked about that. That's not necessarily true. Can you kind of debunk that a little bit more?
Sure. For example, I'm careful in referrals that I make to other lawyers. I have to know their competence level before somebody calls me. So, for example, Megan, if you called me and you said, Jim, I need a will, and I'm getting an inheritance from my grandfather, and so I want to set up a trust, my eyes would immediately cross. I would say, I am not your guy. Right? You need excellence in the field of estate planning, and I would give you the name of an attorney that works in that area. So choosing your lawyer starts with, and there's tools now that we have available, Google reviews. So what we used to hear on the street corner, word of mouth, which still exists, believe me, it still does. People talk, all right? But also people talk on the internet. And so if they... because people, giving a review is kind of some people, don't really want to do it necessarily. Yeah. But if they feel compelled to review you and give others, that's a really good way for you to understand how others have experienced this lawyer in this field. And that's what you're looking for. You want to know that they know what they're doing. And so I don't want to go on and on with the answer, but for example, my initial consultation with somebody is usually an hour or more.
Yeah.
Because we have to understand each other. We have to understand expectations. We have to understand what your challenges are, because you have to make informed decisions. That's the most important thing, just like in medicine. Before you decide to have an operation, you want to make sure you understand the risks, complications, the benefit, how that's possibly going to turn out, because there's no guarantees in the practice of law, just like that's why they call it the practice of law and the practice of medicine. Right? Right. So I think you have to vet a lawyer pretty carefully and make your decision about your comfort. Do I believe this person knows what they're talking? You can tell, right? You know when somebody knows what they're talking about and when they don't. Yeah. And so, you have to have confidence in that lawyer, and I have to have confidence in you and as a client that I believe, what you're telling me. And that I can put you in a better position. That's just as important, because if I don't believe that, then I can't accept you as a client.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to pause real quick and we're going to go to break, but we'll be right back in just a second. And welcome back. We're jumping right back in. The topic we're talking about right now is why your lawyer matters, and also when to know it's the time to get a lawyer. So we'll jump right back in. When people have their first... I don't know if this would be the first meeting with the lawyer or if it would be consultation, but and maybe it's the same for both. But what questions should people be asking?
So we've touched on this a little bit, Megan. You want to know the experience level for the problem that you have.
Right.
Okay. And so if you come in and you ask a lawyer about representing you, again, you've been in a car wreck and you're an older person and you have pre-existing conditions, and all of these red flags that tell me an insurance company is fighting back hard.
Yeah.
I have to be able to discuss with you those concerns and how that's going to impact your case. So, when you, and as I say, that's why I believe it's so important to achieve excellence in a particular field and limit. That's my view. There are lawyers who practice across a wide variety of practice areas. I don't know how they do it, and I don't have any comment on whether they can be competent across all those areas, because that's tough stuff.
Right.
But anyway, so that would be the thing that I would think is you want to first search out lawyers that work in the area of the problem that you have, and then take that And if they don't want to, if they want to take care of you in a 5-minute phone call and not be willing to meet with you, that may not be your lawyer.
Right.
They've got to be invested in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then, so are there warning signs that people, I guess warning signs, kind of red flags, like if they're in that first meeting, that we should kind of alert them to, I don't know if this is the right person for me. If basically, yeah, we'll start there.
So I guess the best compliment I've ever been paid as a lawyer is that I'm approachable. That people can talk to me and feel comfortable, and the answers that I'm giving them are genuine, based on a solid foundation of legal experience. If you're not getting that vibe, all right, but because this is just like a doctor-patient relationship. A lawyer-client relationship is a relationship of trust.
Right.
You have to believe that your lawyer has your back, that your lawyer is invested and is going to do whatever it takes to get the best outcome possible for you. You can't guarantee outcomes in the law, but what you can guarantee is that your client is going to get your best effort. And you have to be comfortable that the lawyer you're talking to is invested in your case, in your situation, in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And so I guess kind of looking outside, but also inside of Wood County, within our county, do we have a pretty diverse, I guess, array of lawyers and who can represent what? Or is there, do people usually have to go outside Wood County to get maybe a lawyer for something specific?
So that can vary depending on what your situation is.
Right.
Now, we do have a fairly diverse bar in Wood County that practices many different areas. And again, I refer to that lawyer base when it's an area of practice that I'm not involved in. And so, but also, for example, if you have a medical malpractice claim, all right, we work with these doctors, right? So it may not be a circumstance where you can get a lawyer locally because they're going to have a conflict because they work with that doctor in certain circumstances.
Yeah.
It could be, if you're intellectual property or some of these areas of law that are very specialized, patent law, obviously then you're going to go outside the area because we just don't have the demand for those kinds of legal services in the area. And so, yeah, I would say that 90% of what you need can be handled in Wood or Washington County because, of course, we're right across the river from Ohio. I practice, in Ohio and West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And so, there, so you have the Washington County Bar as well. And there are a fair number of lawyers that do practice in Ohio and West Virginia just based on the proximity of the river.
Yeah. Okay. And then my last question before we kind of wrap up, kind of jumping back to people's first consultation or meeting with a lawyer, what do people that are looking to get represented need to come prepared with? Not just questions, but if there's any material or, I guess anything like that.
Sure. Well, the documentation that you have, you should bring with you relative to your problem, all right? So, again, I keep referencing a common example was people in a car wreck, right? If you have the crash report, you bring it. But for us, your driver's license, your health insurance information, things like that. If you want to do a will, you come with a list of the people that you think are, need to be discussed in your will, and also the property that you have that is would be subject to, divestiture by a will. So, but that first meeting with a lawyer is mostly about the lawyer educating you. So you can make the informed decision. These are the things we're going to need to gather to make sure we cover all the bases for your particular situation.
Got it.
So, common sense should guide you in that. But aside from that, it's the lawyer's duty to start preparing you to meet the challenge of your situation.
All right. Well, cool. I definitely learned a lot from today. So thank you so much for joining us in the second episode.
Well, thank you, Megan. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right. When we come back for our third episode, we'll actually be joined by you again to talk about another topic. So we will see you guys soon for our third episode of Learning Legal. And thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Bye.
Bye.